This is Laowa 85mm f5.6, one of the smallest and pocket macro lenses. And just to give you an idea how small it is, here is how it looks like next to the 100mm f2.8 Laowa macro lens. In theory, when shooting macro, we shoot at narrow apertures, starting from f8, sometimes f11, f16, and therefore there is no use of f2.8 in macro photography at all. Definitely, it's a brilliant idea to minimize the size in return for having lower aperture capability. I just love the size, and it's possible now to throw it in my backpack anytime, even if I don't really need it. So today we'll check the 85mm Laowa macro lens in different scenarios, and we'll compare it to the 100mm f2.8 so you make up your mind which one suits you the best. Omahe, and let's get started. If you're watching me for the first time, on this channel we make camera and lens reviews for both photography and videos. Let's become friends, and I would be happy if you support the channel. Thank you. Shooting wild macro photography isn't easy as you think. I'm not a professional either, but I learned a few tips that can make your life much easier out there. Tip number 1. Shoot at low aperture. f11, f16, don't worry, you need a sharp subject, and even at such a low aperture, your subject's probably not going to be entirely in focus, and that's depending on your camera angle. Tip number 2. The sound just came up. Since this macro lens has no autofocus, it's highly recommended to use the focus peaking feature in your camera. Make sure to turn it on and get yourself a smoother workflow. Don't shoot in windy conditions. It's near impossible to get the focus right, and if there is a slight wind, just fix the branch with your hand. Tip number 4. Try to shoot fixed objects. It's pretty hard to shoot ants, for example, as they move all the time, and eventually your focus zone is very narrow. This guy just landed here. A treasure. I was lucky at some point. A flying insect landed close to me for a minute and was able to get a couple of shots. Get rid of your lens hood when shooting macro. As you are very close to a subject, 3 inches away, the lens hood will technically block the light between the lens and the subject. Get rid of it and have more room for the light. And speaking of the light, at some point you need to use a flash unit on top of your camera. You're not always lucky to have a bright direct sunlight, and the on-camera flash will add some soft light to your composition. And finally, when looking for an insect or so, it's easier to look around you or at your eye level. And I learned that insects are easier to be found in the morning, early in the morning, as it's the best time for them to look for food. Now we'll jump to the studio and we'll continue this review from there. Here we have the 85mm macro lens next to the 100mm macro f2.8. The size difference is so huge. The 85mm f5.6 lens is roughly half the size of the 100 and weighs 274 grams, 9.7 ounces, versus 720 grams, 1.6 pound. An impressive weight difference. However, the 100mm Laowa comes with a UV filter to protect the lens front element from getting any dust inside. Both lenses share the same build quality so far. And when it comes to the maximum magnification, the 85mm f5.6 has 16.3 cm, 6.4 inches minimum focus distance, and the 100mm f2.8 features 24.7 cm, 9.7 inches minimum focus distance. Although the numbers are quite different, both lenses have the same 2x magnification, which means that the two lenses capture the same subject at the same size. But since the 85mm lens is wider than 100, you need to get much closer if you wish to capture the subject at the same size in both lenses. Which is sometimes quite annoying because getting closer to a subject blocks more light and casts more shadows. Now here we have two images shot with the 85 and 100mm macro. Indeed, we get different background compression due to the focal length difference. I would like to highlight that having a macro slider is very helpful in such a shoot. I will show you mine that I got after the shoot. Alright, this is the macro slider I recently got. And as you see here, when playing with these knobs, the camera goes forward or backward depending on your position. And it's much easier to adjust the focus distance using a macro slider than your shaky hands. Now when I got the 85mm macro lens within nature and play with it in the field, let's say, I didn't feel that I'm missing the 100mm at all. The 85mm lens did a good job. First, it's very small, lightweight and convenient to carry for a long trip. And the first downside I noticed when using the 85mm lens is you need to get a lot closer to a subject than the 100mm, which is in some situations might be annoying. Let's say when shooting very small insects, there is a risk to scare them and make them move. The second flaw is the lens hood. Eventually at that distance, it blocks a significant amount of light and casts shadows in some situations. Take your lens hood off and make good images. And the 85mm macro unfortunately suffers from color fringing when dealing with hard direct sunlight on your object, and you see remarkable chromatic aberration at the edges, no matter f5.6, f8 or f11. On the other hand, when shooting overhead shots with the 100mm macro, I found that sometimes it's hard to play with the focus ring if you're doing overhead shots, and adjusting the focus ring is quite hard. Is it probably because of the heavy internal lens elements I'm trying to move at that position and the weight isn't helping? I'm not sure. However, the 85mm lens works fine in that scenario. I pretty much enjoyed using the 85mm Laowa in the nature and I got some good images out there. I can't say it's easy to find or to shoot moving insects, but it's fun to explore and try different new things. The wild is full of beauty, and if insects isn't your niche, you get a full nature to enjoy. Take your time. There are many nice compositions to please your eye. This is a moment of truth, where we put both lenses on the sharpness test. I hope the 85mm f5.6 comes with good image quality compared to the 100mm f2.8. The 100mm is always on the left, the 85mm is always on the right. And I can tell straight away the 100mm f2.8 is sharper than the 85mm f5.6 in the center. And the 85mm is sharper at corners. Also, we can see heavy vignette at 100mm f2.8. Now f4, 100mm is sharper than 85, whether in the center or corners. And no more heavy vignette at f4 100mm. And this is f5.6 versus f5.6. And based on the previous result, indeed the 100mm is remarkably sharper than the 85. Long story short, f11 is the sharpest aperture in the 85mm lens. f16 and f22 are quite softer. And on the other hand, f5.6 is the sharpest aperture in the 100mm Laowa. f11 and f16 are fine, but f22 is quite soft. Eventually, the 100mm Laowa features better image quality and sharpness, but way heavier. The 85mm f5.6, on the other hand, is a pocket lens for the move and has a decent image quality as you saw earlier in the wild. I hope this video helped in making your decision. Let me know what you think in the comment section down below, show me thumbs up and bump that subscribe button for more camera gear reviews. This was Oma and see you in another one.